Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game podcast, where we do things like talk about game design and the business of role-playing games and the news. And I'm Shawn Merwin, and that right there is Teos Abadia. Hey, Teos, how's it been?
Oh, it's been great. It's been fantastic. And you and I have big news because the day we're recording, not the day you're listening, we sent something to our Patreon folks.
And it wasn't the Sabres' victory last night over the Boston Bruins, although that is quite exciting.
Sabre that victory.
Sent out, that's right. I'm going to saber it for at least 2 days. What we sent out to everyone was our first Patreon backer creation. And what that is a little game design stuff for people who back our Patreon. And what we did this week was 2 new giants, the Hill Giant Earthquaker and the Stone Giant Gem Master. I whipped those up. Teos did a pass to edit and do some development on them. And now they are in your inbox. If you are a Patreon backer of any inclination, from the $3 Master of Dungeons to our Masters of the Multiverse, because we wanted to give everyone a taste. Now, moving forward, Teos, correct me if I'm wrong, but these will go to our top 2 tiers from this point forward. We thank our Master of Dungeons supporters for your support. You do help us record the show, pay for all this equipment, pay for the software, do all of that. But we want to give a little bit of extra to those folks that do the top 2 tiers. So going forward, those folks will be getting our Patreon backer creations.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this has come up before on our Discord, where folks say, like, which everybody who subscribes gets access to the Discord, but folks would ask, like, are you guys making money from this show? And it's like, no. I mean, money comes in, but when you add up all the hours we spend, you know, we're not there yet. We're getting closer. And so one of the things that we're hoping is this can get us to where we actually go, hey, we do this podcast and we make money on it, which would be really cool to be able to say. But first step, covering it. And really the first step was thank you to all the folks who joined in the last week and made this release possible and have gotten us to our first goal. So that's really awesome. And so we have a small giant thing for you this week.
A small giant thing. And you also, many of you will now get your names newly mangled by me. And so hang in there till the end of the second segment to hear that madness. So we don't know what everything will be each time. We will try to theme it around whatever we're discussing. So we discussed the Giants Adventure last time, so we made a couple of giants. This week, we're going to switch tact a little bit, and we're going to talk about the new DungeonsandDragons.com website. So that will be our main segment. And you may sound like, why? Well, for a lot of reasons. Right? We cover marketing, we cover brand, we cover business, and all of that is covered. But we also cover game design, and we're going to discuss a little bit about game design in that segment as we talk about the new D&D DungeonsandDragons.com website. So hang in there for that. But we also take emails and comments and questions and thoughts and prayers and hopes and dreams from our listeners. And we call that our listener corner. And so we are going to get to a couple of those questions today. We're going to start with a YouTube question that came in via the Drew Boat. And he says, in your previous show, you mentioned the focus of what D&D does. What is 5th edition and 5.5 designed to do? Are we sure it even does that well? Or is it just Oatmeal, designed to not really mean much to any type of fantasy?
Whoa. Yeah. Oatmeal is actually a really great fiber-rich meal. You should be getting more oatmeal. So, Drew, thanks for your question about nutrition. No, I'm kidding.
Oatmeal eater here.
Yeah, oatmeal's great. But we know what you mean. D&D has for a long time been positioned carefully, so it can be a lot of things to a lot of people. There's no question that is one of the secrets of its success, right? This is why we have fun arguments like, someone will say, why are you running horror with D&D? It's not meant for that. And then like all these DMs say, I'm having a great time running horror with D&D, right? And it's not a nefarious or boring goal. It's a good goal for what is by far the world's most popular role-playing game, right? It is not pigeonholing itself to say we only do tactical play, or we're only for heavy role-playing groups, or only for gothic horror, or only for, inventory management and, how far into the dungeon can you go? It is meant to have a flexible core that serves a wide audience range well and allows each group to add their touches. When I look at what 2014 does, and things like when we interviewed Rob Schwab on the show, what the designers of 2014 said, they were worried that that would be the last edition of D&D. And this was because of D&D's historic sales and the nature of our troubled role-playing game industry. They wanted that edition of 5th edition to speak all of its fans, from the first editions to the most recent. So they built a fairly modular system, right? The idea is that things like feats were optional. You could remove backgrounds and it wouldn't really matter. And at its core was this really grounded game with flexible additive parts. And it did that really, really well. How well? It took what was already the most popular role-playing game and grew it to what nobody would have imagined was possible. So you couldn't have bigger success than that. From the perspective not only of money, but of pleasing people, right? That money comes from pleasing lots of people who love playing 5th edition. 2024 5e is less grounded, less of this modular kind of system. It's more built for current fans, I think is fair to say. It leans into the most popular play approaches that we saw in 5e and reinforces those. Will it be more successful? I don't know. We'll have to see. And there are a lot of factors that can drive that, not just how the game is written. But for sure, all of 5e has been a fantastic game that remains incredibly popular and enjoyable.
When you hear discussions of why did 5e explode like it did, everyone always goes to, well, Stranger Things, streaming, just the availability of information via the internet, ways to learn different ways. What is often mentioned last or often left out completely is the fact that it was a rule system that spoke to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Yeah. We've talked about the diversity of the audience for role-playing games and for Dungeons and Dragons. And 2014 was able to recapture the imagination of folks that played 3rd edition and previous. And it also was able to capture the imagination of new fans equally. And that is a very hard fence to walk on. That is a very hard balance beam not to fall off on one side or the other. And I can't say for sure that, well, the design team knew exactly what they were doing, being able to capture all of those things. There is luck involved. But the play testing and the design parameters that they wrapped themselves in showed that they went back to the beginning of the game and they went to several different kinds of audiences and said, does this please you? Mm-hmm. And they took great care in that. And that is an important part of why Teos and I are here today talking about Dungeons and Dragons as the phenomenon that it has become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, that it may be hard to say, well, I love this particular system, like I spent a lot of time at Draw Steel with its very tactically focused game. Mm-hmm. And it's fun to hear James Introcaso talk about how he's working on Crows and how he's not doing these things that he himself designed for Draw Steel, right? That is the life of a designer, is being able to know, and a good designer is being able to know why you did a thing in one time versus this other time. D&D has those same parameters, right? That same equation is going on. These designers are not designers that think, gee, how can I make the most vanilla thing? No, they're like, how can I make something really exciting that works in what D&D is and that applies all of these different things? And that's why you see systems, whether it's Downtime or Bastions or things like that, they work for all of D&D. A good system does that because it needs to apply across the audience, or it will... it'll be too niche, and it'll draw away from D&D instead.
Yep. And that leads nicely into our next question from Oz Jeb via Discord. He said, nice discussion on ways to handle travel and downtime. I was surprised that you did not specifically mention montages, particularly as several games have mechanics and approaches for using montages to handle travel, shopping, crafting, etc. Notably, Blades in the Dark uses montages and flashbacks to allow players to describe how they prepared for a heist as they're playing through the heist. So just as a reminder, this question where we mentioned travel and downtime was a question that was really about, quote, skipping the boring parts. So montages as a game mechanic, they're solid on their own, but they're also ways to skip the boring parts depending on how they're used. So the question, however, really does help us focus on what is exciting or boring about TTRPGs to different kinds of GMs and players by talking about montages.
Yeah.
So first of all,
I just want to reinforce there, Shawn, that to that question, we could have said, here are all the things we love to do with, say, travel. But we were really focusing on that concept of what is boring, why skip, not what we do in our games and so on. And montage is one of those tools that's great to look at when you start looking at, okay, what do you do for travel, right?
Right. And that's why I wanted to look at montages specifically here. So what is a montage? Some of you may be like, I don't even know what that means. So it's a term really from film that uses a series of short scenes that are sequenced to condense time, space, or information. So rather than having many long scenes about the growth of a relationship between two people, you just cut to very short, quick scenes showing that relationship either growing or falling apart, so you don't need to spend a half hour developing that. You can just see, oh, this couple, they went on their first date and now they are moving forward through, and then we end at their wedding. We have understood that they have had this relationship, and it's only taken 30 seconds for us to be told that. So how are montages used in tabletop role-playing games? They can be used as storytelling play, and this is similar to how they might be used in a film. However, we're talking about skipping the boring parts. If the players aren't really into storytelling and characterization, even asking for a montage can be boring to them. Even the 30 seconds that you take to say, describe a scene with your character in it. And the player might be like, I want to hit an orc with my axe. And you're like, okay, tell me about a time that you hit an orc with your axe. And they're like, well, can I roll a 20-sider, right? So montages can be great, but they can also be the boring part that people want to skip.
Yeah. Or I did tell you, I told you I hit an orc with my axe.
Right. Exactly. Done, right? Yep, that's all we need to know. Okay,
so some DMs will say that kind of thing, like, describe what the orc tribe was, which orc tribe was it, and where in the woods were you, and the player can be like, I don't know, you tell me, like, I wasn't there.
Yeah. So if players want that sort of storytelling, they want to express their backstory, but you don't want to have them take 20 minutes to describe the clan that they're from. You could say, ask one of those questions that leads to a short scene, but also recognize you may have players that don't want to do that. Montages can also be used to determine the consequences without engaging in tactical play. A skill challenge can be a montage where this is the question about travel, right? This is, you're going from point A to point B. Talk to me about how you are able to get past this particular obstacle with one roll. So that is a montage with a little bit of tactical, a little bit of gameplay, a little bit of rolling involved. But then you can just say, okay, you succeeded on your survival check as you tried to escape the pack of wolves that was following you. You failed. You lose this many hit dice. So it's shortened tactical play with a consequence. Okay, in a lot of cases, it does skip the boring part if you know that the fight is not going to have great consequences, you can shorten it to be like, yeah, you probably would have lost a few hit points. So I'll just take some of your hit dice away and we'll call it even. Did you use that in any points in your DMing?
Yeah, and in a number of ways. And that's what's fun about things like, say, skill challenges that were in 4th edition is people think of them as many things. One of them is that idea of them being a montage type approach, where you do explain the things you overcame. And how you present that can be different too. So Draw Steel, for example, has a montage system. And what it does is it says up front, and it really is leaning into that film technique, right? It is saying, we are going to collaboratively build the best of shortcuts, by cuts I mean filming sequences that capture what it was like to do this thing, whatever the thing is. So, we're traversing some caverns. Great. We're going to do a montage. Here's what the caverns have: areas of poison gas, deep drops with narrow ledges to skirt across. There are falling stalactites. There are, any number of things. And now you say to the players, what did you do? And the player is building that scene that would be in the movie for those, X seconds. So you're saying, well, I tried to handle the narrow ledges by tying ropes around us. And I made this, balance type check to get across. And the other person says, I brought up this spell power of mine, this ability that I have to block the falling stalactites, right? And so you go through and you make these checks to see whether it worked or didn't, and that creates the scene. And so you're building that sort of montage by doing that, right? And by the way, determining failure or success at that, right? Which then has repercussions based on how the story was set up, which is a fun system.
One of the questions we've had to deal with in the past is, what do you do when a combat is dragging on? And sometimes people just say, just end the combat. Just say, you win and we're done.
No.
You could use a montage combat to say, all right, everyone take one more turn. You've won. But see how the rest of the combat would have gone based on this one roll. And if you succeed, you win with no consequences. If any of you fail on your spell, on your attack, there will be a consequence for that in terms of maybe lost hit points, maybe lost resources, something like that. And so it's a way, again, to skip the boring part in a way that still has consequences.
Yeah. And in that way of skipping boring part, something else that came up in this question was the idea of flashbacks. And there have been a number of skills. My first encounter with it was in the role-playing game Spycraft. It had a way to say, no, I have that, right? Gumshoe games, Knights Black Agents, you have preparedness. And there's a version in Time Watch. And in fact, in Time Watch, you can even travel back in time to get whatever you need and set up what you need. And those can create paradoxes, which is fun too. But in all of these games, these tend to be games, Blades in the Dark is true as well, where what you don't want is players before they do a heist endlessly thinking about every gear item and possibility they must deal with, and just taking forever to do it. You want them to just jump into the action. And so you're giving them these systems so that you can skip the boring part of planning and just do. And then when you need to spend that point or whatever the system does to say, actually, I have that rope. I have the grappling hook. I have the timer that I can set into the explosive. And we just roll to make sure that we do, or sometimes you just spend a point to do it. And that just lets you move forward because you're top secret agent or whatever it is. You would know this, you would do this.
Right. I cannot tell you the one time I played Spycraft. It was at a convention and I was working a desk and playing at the same time.
Okay.
And I think it was like a 3-hour slot. And we got the mission. Now it's the shopping time. And the people started like going through the books and to how much money do we have to spend. And I got called away to deal with a problem. And I think I came back an hour later and they were still shopping.
Yeah.
If I had been sitting there the whole time, I would have cried.
Yeah. And even the designers of Spycraft, I've talked to them and the team, they at Crafty Games, they also acknowledge this and have played with a number of possible ways that if they did another version of Spycraft, they would get past that because it's too much, right? It just you're having fun on one hand picking the items, but on the other hand, you all want it to end, and it's a funny
right. And the it's not even, there have been some shopping scenes that have been fun, but the issue is the gameplay isn't necessarily, there are no necessarily consequences for extra things that you've bought, or you bought something and you end up not needing it, right? And so this sort of montage it's both a time saver and an attention saver to actually get to the part that many of the players will want to get to, and then you can go back and deal with the consequences of your ability to pick the correct item later.
Yeah, and just to go back to what we did last week is to say, all of this goes back to knowing what you want in your game and what the players want in your game. What are you skipping? What are you digging into? To what extent, right? Things like montages are ways to kind of condense it. And so you want to do that when it fits your game, not just always.
Yeah. So thank you for those questions. We appreciate them very much. And now we're going to get to our news and commentary section, starting with Ravenloft and D&D. The Horrors Within details have been announced, but we are going to talk about those details in our main segment as we look at the new D&D DungeonsandDragons.com website. But we are going to talk a little bit about it because there was also a little bit of news about what is in D&D Ravenloft Horrors Within. Because Ravenloft fan Jeff Mueller, who joined us a couple weeks ago, notes on our Discord that Beetle and Grimm's just dropped their promo for their Ravenloft Horrors Within box set. So they break out the chapters of the books into mini booklets, and they showed them all. So Teos, do you want to take us through what we learned based on Jeff's sleuthing?
Yeah. So we know that the chapters are going to be, number one, character options, then domains of Ravenloft, Taroka, and the Mists through Innsmouth. Then there's a 2A, domains of Ravenloft, Kalakari through random domains. Then chapter 3 is Ravenloft Adventures. Chapter 4, creating domains of Dread. And chapter 5, Denizens of the Mist, and then there is an appendix. And so we can see here that this actually is a lot like Van Richten, slightly different, but very similar to that in its makeup. Also noted is that the D&D Beyond pre-order includes a D&D Encounters Sithicus adventure, and of course that new Ravenloft page on the D&D website, which we'll talk about later.
Absolutely. Another thing we'll talk about more is D&D's new actual play, since that is focused on Ravenloft. But Wizards announced it is returning to producing its own actual play in a big way with a new cast and big production values. The show is called Dungeon Masters, and it is the new official D&D actual play anthology series where electrifying players turn official game content into a story worth remembering. Campaign 1, set in Ravenloft, and will premiere April 22nd. And as I look at my date, that is the day this show drops. At 6:30 p.m. So Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., I assume Pacific time. And that will release a new episode every Wednesday at 6:30.
And I think 2 episodes come out at the beginning. It starts you off with those 2. Jasmine Billar is the DM, which is super cool. She's awesome. I love that in any Act Inc. game, Jim Dark Magic won't remember how Jim's magic missile works, but Jasmine will, right? And she is so sharp at D&D. It's really great to see her as DM. Then we have Mayana Barron, Christian Navarro, Neil Newborn, and Devora Wild. The last 2 were voice actors on the Baldur's Gate 3 video game, playing your favorite Githyanki and Astarion, of course. Mayana is playing Wesley, a Grave Domain cleric. Nice choice. Christian is playing Eloin, a Winter Walker ranger. That's one of the new ones. Neil is playing Krem, a Reanimator artificer. That's from the upcoming book, I believe. Devora is playing Zora, a Shadow Sorcery sorcerer. The story premise is called Ashes of the Black Rose, and I saw the D20 play channels already getting ready to run a game of that too, so you can get in on that. So the story premise is a doomed land is being unmade. Its would-be saviors may not make it out. When a fractured band of unlikely allies finds itself trapped in a nightmare ruled by the infamous fallen paladin Lord Soth, our heroes must do whatever it takes to break free. And so there's this idea that the Ravenloft is undoing itself in some way. They are trying to escape, but the question is maybe not whether they can escape, but what they'll be forced to sacrifice to survive.
The cast will also be at Fan Expo London, August 21st and 22nd. The actual play has an interesting twist in that they will have play-along packs that will be released to inspire your games and translate to what you see in the actual play by bringing it to your table. Each week will provide ready-to-run encounters, quick play maps, inspired by the episodes, as well as the preview of some of the monsters. These will be free, starting with the first pack called Zombie Clot Encounter on April 23rd. So the day after the show drops, you will get a pack. The packs will include a hook, a quick play map, and that easy early access monster that will be featured in Ravenloft, The Horrors Within.
Very cool. And it sounds like the first one is free, but then you have to pre-order Ravenloft, The Horrors Within to unlock the rest. That's your understanding as well, Shawn?
It is my understanding.
Yeah. Looking at the product page, pre-ordering seems to have a digital pre-order bonus, which is the Mists of Ravenloft digital dice set. Great. Dungeon Masters Ravenloft Play Along pack. That's what we just talked about. And then D&D Encounters Shadows of Sithicus mini adventure. So you also get that, which is cool. I imagine they will sell these things separately. We'll have to find out. We've talked about before on the show that hard question of, do you offer exclusive things for D&D Beyond that you can't get elsewhere, especially if they're not available in PDF, and so they only live in that world. You create this dichotomy of site, not site. And we've heard Dan Ayub and others say they want, they are emphasizing print play, and we heard even the D&D Beyond folks say how important print play is. But this kind of puts us back into that buy from D&D Beyond corner, which I'm always a little uneasy with.
We have a Legends of Greyhawk sighting on D&D Beyond. The Legends of Greyhawk Elemental Evil Rising is the series of 3 adventures that are now on D&D Beyond. You can uncover something foul lurking in the shadows of the Temple of Elemental Evil with these 3 single-session adventures approved for play in the Legends of Greyhawk organized play campaign and for use as compelling one-shots in your home games. What is included in this bundle? A short intro and DM's aid for all 3 adventures. And then the adventures, A Village Called Hamlet, Darkness in Nulb, and Ruins of the Moat House. These 3 adventures are for levels 1 to 4, taking place in the Viscounty of Verbabank, set in CY 576. And you can also get more information on the Legends of Greyhawk campaign itself on a new landing page on D&D Beyond.
Yeah, fantastic news. Really exciting to see this campaign provide its adventures there. So you can now run these anywhere, and then you can jump into convention play and so on with your Legends of Greyhawk character. So really great. And these are great adventures. You wrote one. Eric Mengi wrote another. Greg Marks wrote one. These are top-notch authors writing these. And Shawn. No, I'm kidding. Top-notch authors writing these. They're fantastic fun. I've played 2 of these 3. They were excellent. Super, super fun. Really great way to start. And the whole storyline, the adventures that come after this, which I've run and or played, are excellent too. So you're buying in on the beginning of a really exciting story arc that is a lot of fun around the classic Temple of Elemental Evil, which we covered not too long ago. This is really cool. And so I'm really excited. And I'm also glad to know, Shawn, that because these adventures have been played since more than a year ago, they actually, there were some games going on. Play tests were taking place at Winter Fantasy last year, and then they started coming out around a year ago. So we know that because people have been playing it and having just amazing fun, there will be absolutely no controversy about renaming someone's tavern that could possibly come out onto the internet, because we all know we're all just having a great fun time and there are no issues whatsoever.
Oh, yeah. Yep. 2 years of play. Everybody at the table seemed pretty happy. Everybody loved playing the game. And then people that don't play Legends of Greyhawk get to chime in. But, you know, we'll tackle that another day, or possibly the next middle of never. And Daggerheart, Hope and Fear has now been given a release date. Daggerheart's next expansion will be released on the 25th of August in Critical Role Shop and at gaming stores that are part of the Darrington Press Guild. It releases everywhere else on September 22nd. So about a month early if you get it from the online store or game stores that are associated. What else do we know about this, Teos?
Well, it was sold via pre-order, and last we checked, you can still order it via pre-order. And there is a deluxe version, including a DM screen, dice, top of DM screen, fear tracker. Pre-orders come with a 20% discount to a demi-plane Nexus version as well. And Shawn and I have in the past covered that Nexus version is really sweet. It's really nicely implemented. The new Hope and Fear book has cover art by Matt Wilma and Dominic Mayer. These are the same artists that did the core books that are so beautiful. Dominic Mayer also did the recent alt covers for Forgotten Realms book. So fantastic, gorgeous art that's been shared for the Hope and Fear book. And you can play Daggerheart at UK Games Expo, Free RPG Day, and Gen Con. I played it last week and had an absolute blast with a very cool thing that I can't talk about what it was, but it'll be coming out before too long. And for Hope and Fear, a new unboxing video was also released on YouTube where they showed a few bits from it, which looks very cool.
Apparently, the Dungeon Crawler Carl RPG crowdfunder has lit the internet on fire in a good way. In just one day, they cleared $5 million. This crowdfunder is being run by Renegade Game Studio. The campaign takes the series of books by Matt Dinneman, where Carl and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, have survived mining, transporting, processing, and consumption of the Earth's resources by an alien corporation. And now they're being forced to compete in a dungeon crawl recreated from these resources for an intergalactic reality show program. Those first 7 books of that series sold over 6 million copies. So there's definitely an audience for it. And the RPG is showing that this audience has also an interest in role-playing game content, because they are blowing away every other role-playing game Kickstarter you can imagine. We would be happy if it reached 5 million after a year of being out, and this was one day's worth.
Yeah, it's at 6.8 right now, 28,800 backers with 25 days left. This was one of these things where I hear this come up periodically, and then I talk to folks, and some people say, they love these books, can't get enough. Others bounce right off of them, but there are clearly enough people that love them that this thing is just going wild. And congrats to Renegade Games. They have had an uncanny ability to, land these big IP properties, and this one is clearly a really, really big success.
Mm-hmm. The dice that were discovered in the United States, they thought they went back a few years. It turns out that they are probably 6,000 years older than previously thought. And I know because I was playing with them, Teos.
I feel that way sometimes.
Some days. So tell us about this story.
I mean, you might have seen the kind of neat looking chipped D20 that we see from like Romans played with these, And so that was sort of what folks were thinking were like the oldest dice out there. And now new research used an interesting approach to look at objects that have been found from Native Americans that they didn't know what they were. And using various techniques, this research came to conclude that these were actually dice used in games of chance or various other uses. And so more than 600 objects have been discovered as two-sided dice crafted by Native Americans. And this would say that dice are 6,000 years older than before, so twice the lifespan that we previously imagined, going back to 12,000 years ago. Many of them are two-sided with engravings on one side. Unfortunately, we have no evidence at all of either their character sheets or their online VTTs, as those probably degraded over time.
It's true. It's true. And some people might say, well, that's just a coin. Right. Except, guess what? They did not use were coins. Yeah. So in that sense, these had to be crafted likely for the specific reason of odds, yes or no. And so we can then call them dice. All right, and we will go to our creator corner, where we're going to start with the Human-Made Alternatives Guide. What is this, Teos?
Yeah, this is a new site that is ttrpgresources.com. And the whole aim of it is to show you that you don't need AI to create games. It gathers a number of resources, including free, public domain, Creative Commons, and attribution sources. This is awesome. It's something that, on our Discord, for example, folks have said, hey, I was going to use AI art. I want to change my Kickstarter over to not using it. What are the resources? This is exactly the kind of site that aims to do that. It gives you free image libraries, icon sets, much more, ways to locate artists, find writing prompts, random tables, audio, puzzles, handout tools, a lot more. So ttrpgresources.com.
Congratulations to the nominees for the 2025 Indie Groundbreaker Awards. This year, the Game of the Year nominees include Ethan Yen's Chain Link, The Time We Have, Spine, Little Wolves, and What Should We Have Tomorrow? We've mentioned Chain Link on the show before, and it was also nominated for the Most Innovative Game and the Best Graphic Design. So congratulations, Ethan and company, and congratulations to all the nominees. You can see a full list of nominees at igdnonline.com. And last but not least, the Legends of Eleanora charity live stream. Very good friend of the show, Robert Pasley, who created our cool Flump convention badge banners, is playing in this game. The game will raise funds for the Pavlov Foundation, which supports geriatric cancer research and creative outlets for pediatric cancer patients. This will be pediatric cancer patients. The stream will take place on April 26th, which is a Sunday, at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and includes many celebrity players. And you can find that at twitch.tv/mini-terrain-domain.
Very cool.
And that was our news and commentary section this week here on Mastering Dungeons.